Today we'll talk about from KV to onto the Cloudflare storage journey. I will look at the past, we'll look at the present, the very present, literally like 30 minutes ago present, and also the future. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Mark. This is a picture from the days where I still looked young and fresh. I'm leading our solutions here at Cloudflare for the developer platform. You can reach me via email, ask questions anytime. I'll try to be as responsive as can be. If you want to hear me like communicate in memes, follow me on X and Twitter. If you like to hear business Mark, also on LinkedIn, very different audiences. Cool. Sweet. Let's dive right in. No time to waste. Um, my question is, do you like history? Because you're in for a treat. I will start literally at the Cloudflare origin story and take it from there. And the Cloudflare origin story, by that I mean like the origin of the developer platform or everything that you can build on today. And it all starts with the announcements of Cloudflare Workers. Idea is, hey, let's have a JavaScript runtime on the edge at the time at roughly 200 cities around the world. And yeah, people were able to configure their CDM. That was a little bit the idea. Um, Entering 2018, we announced Cloudflare KV. Key value store, nothing crazy. I think we all know what that looks like, whether you've used Redis before, Dynamo, stuff like that. And yeah, the idea was, okay, cool, let's do that as well. We don't release products just because we say, hey, that's fun. Yes, we also do it because it's fun, but because we try to enable customer use cases. So we think about services, but we also think about use cases. What can people do with this? And well, we introduced workers and KV because we wanted to be a really programmable CDN. With workers, you could customize every request that was throwing through the CDN layer, stuff like Cloudflare was known for, this big behemoth of a reverse proxy, and take it from there. KV made it really easy to dynamically update the behavior of that configuration of that programmable CDN layer. KV makes your data globally distributed, eventually consistent. So not at the time, but nowadays, reading from KV actually on a hot path takes less than 1 millisecond. So it's crazy performance. Why? Because the main use case is have this flow of data, reading this data in your HTTP traffic in the hot path. So this is the pattern we'll see throughout the history of the storage here. We add more services, but not just for the sake of adding new services, but to allow people to build new stuff on Cloudflare. And you'll see over the years how many different use cases we have unlocked there. Okay, so humble beginnings, JavaScript runtime, workers at the time, service worker syntax at the time, and then workers KV adding to that, and now unlocking the most programmable CDN. Enter 2020. If you have been in that talk, roughly, I don't know, half an hour ago, you see founders and startups that are entirely reliant on the primitives of job objects. It's basically tiny mini servers all around the world that you can use to coordinate, to keep state in serverless compute, all these kind of things. So that's great. Now, you might be wondering, okay, cool. What's the use case you can unlock with that? And it's real-time coordination. You can use an edge network, this globally distributed data centers, to say, okay, cool. Not only can I use serverless compute, but now I have stateful serverless compute to spin up services, for instance, for whiteboarding, as you saw, or collaborative Git repos. Those are the example from the other talk just there a few minutes ago for real-time coordination. Anything that might require that. A game server, also a great example. There was a company called PartyKit, also a startup that like pretty quiet, that doesn't really matter, and that does exactly that. Okay, cool. 2021, we announced queues as an orchestration layer. So on top, you'll always find the orchestration. On the bottom, you'll find the storage, object storage. The special thing here being, okay, cool, it's egress free. So if you use it via the S3 API, you can call it from wherever you want. I have the feeling that this mic is on and this is not, but that's okay. Uh, all good. So that's great. And you might be wondering, okay, cool, what does that unlock? In itself, not a lot, but it's the foundation for more to come. So look at what's happening over the years then. We announced D1, our first SQL relational storage database based on SQLite. And the idea is that you're able to spin up serverless SQLite, meaning, hey, zero request, it scales down to zero. If there's a request coming in, you're paying for that, and that's it. And our users are able to scale up to 10,000, 100,000, a million D1 instances in their account to enable different use cases. Well, now we have compute, we have object storage, we have a relational database, and we have eventually consistent data. Well, with that, you can build new full stack apps. That's all you need basically to run, for instance, I don't know, React application that server side rendered, let's say a remix, and then have user generated content, upload that to an object storage, track that with a D1 database. So it allowed a huge new push of applications that you could build on Cloudflare, globally distributed, fully serverless, no provisioning or like scaling capacity, anything like that, all out of the box. But that is only for greenfield applications. Well, the reality is you need, oftentimes you already have data lying around somewhere. So that's where Hyperdrive comes in, our connection pooling and SQL query caching, to connect your existing Postgres, but also now MySQL as of this week, to Cloudflare and have workers communicate to your existing data. And we are fully aware that most likely you have a database already somewhere, you have data already somewhere, and that might be localized. Our compute, though, is global. So we say, okay, let's use the Cloudflare fashion of make this happening and use cache, something we're really familiar with as a CDN, to make this data feel more distributed. So you can say, okay, cool. I take my workers compute, that is serverless. I use Hyperdrive, and then I can connect to my Aurora, my Neon, whatever it is that you're running your Postgres on, or self-hosting even, or your MySQL database, and connect to that. And it's 2023. You might be aware something happened in the industry. If you go to tech conferences, I go, you saw the word, two letters popping up everywhere, is AI. So what did we do at Cloudflare? Yeah, we launched a vector database. And again, I think this one is not crazy. What did that unlock? Well, brownfield applications, right? Full stack apps where we say, hey, you don't have to bring everything over to Cloudflare. You don't need to start at zero, because reality is it's messy what you're using out there, and you're not all starting a new startup every quarter, but you actually work on ongoing projects and an ongoing environment. Not everything has a nice REST API that you can interact with, but actually, like, you want to connect to these, and you can build AI applications, right? Whether that's a RAG or whatever you want to build, you can do that on Cloudflare end to end. Sweet. 2024, we introduced pipelines. Pipelines is our streaming ingest. So I'll talk about that in just a few seconds a little bit more. But if you're familiar with, I don't know, AWS Kinesis Firehose, Apache Flink, basically, that's a little bit of the equivalent of there. Again, fully serverless. Okay, that brings us to pretty much present day. That was a really, really short recap in 9 minutes of years worth of engineering, product launches, us building all of these things out. The last thing that this enabled, queues and also pipelines, is to say, hey, you can now build end-to-end ETL pipelines on Cloudflare. Again, fully serverless. None of this charges by the hour. It's all based on requests and volume. So again, scales to zero if you don't use it. If you need more throughput, it's highly scalable, takes it from there. Okay. Well, you might be like, okay, they just announced new products all the time and services. No, we also continue to improve them over the time, right? So we made KV blazing fast over the years. P90 now, just as a stat, is like around 2 milliseconds. So that's wild. We added SQLite backends to dribble objects if you just wanted to do that. We added event notifications for R2. We added automatic migrations from AWS and GCP, whether that's one-time migrations or at request time migrations. They have the fancy names that I always love to see on stage. We call them either Super Slurper, great product name, highly recommended, or SIPI for the end request time, migration, infrequent access storage, and so on and so forth. So all these new products that we like announced over the years, of course, we continue to increase, improve them, and make them better over time. Great. And all of that brings us to today, Developer Week. And I will not tell you that we just did a few announcements 30 minutes ago, because then your attention is all gone, because you'll check your phone and read the Cloudflare blog. Just listen to me. It's the same thing, but just like in a weird accent. And just saying, please don't do that. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you do, it's also fine. Those blogs are awesome. Cool. So let me take you through what we announced today, literally today. Okay. Um, we we launched Iceberg. So I don't know who of you deals with data a lot, and especially like BI tools, whether you're dealing with Snowflake or with Databricks and so on and so forth. The idea here is to say, okay, cool. You most likely have some kind of metrics. You have some data that you're batching up, and then you want to query that data from time to time. How you do that is to have like a data catalog, and they're called like icebergs. And this is really, really cool, because that allows this property of R2, where it's egress free, allows you to store your data in data catalogs that can be queried by Snowflake and by Databricks and these other companies really, really easily. So we're really going into a new use case. I'll go into that in just a second, but that might be a little bit of foreshadowing of where Cloudflare is going with its data story. I mentioned that already. MySQL support for Hyperdrive. So if you're using MySQL, super popular. We already support Postgres. Now it's the next flavor of SQL we support. You have a database that's still running that, and you would love workers to communicate with that. It's possible today, ready to go. Hyperdrive. We are also working on supporting NoSQL flavors. That takes a little bit more of engineering, but that will come. So Hyperdrive will continue to be our connection layer from Cloudflare's world of serverless compute that is globally distributed and scales up really, really fast, to your traditional, whether that's on-prem or hyperscaler deployment, self-managed or managed databases. We invest in Hyperdrive quite a bit. Cool. And then this one has been a long one, I think, pending, so to say. D1 got read replication, meaning, hey, you can not only spin up millions of small, tiny SQLite databases, you can also hit them with way more throughput as you could before, because not the requests are not all going through that master instance. You get read replicas that are globally distributed. Again, that's the nice thing about the Cloudflare network, to say, okay, cool. Instead of going to one single region where that database lives, we will automatically spin up a read replica in each major region around the world. That is fully managed for you. You don't need to do that. You don't need to set up a cluster. You don't need to worry about data cross-region syncing and the cost that comes with it, because that can be quite hefty if you ever did this multi-region cloud setup. Sounds great in the beginning, is really tough to operate actually, and also not cheap, because every change to your database, you're effectively egressing to different regions in that hyperscaler region, right? And yeah, you can do that now out of the box with Cloudflare, D1, and the read replication there. So super excited for that. One thing that I do not have a slide for, but I still wanted to wrap, is I didn't have a slide because there was a little bit of an embargo going on. We also announced today pipelines. So that is, again, our event ingestion side of things in beta. And what's I find super exciting is Cloudflare is not only there on the performance side, but one thing that people really like from us is the scale that you get. And even in beta right now, you can send us like over 100,000 RPS is the limit right now for even in beta, and we're just getting started. That will be more than that, events per second. What will happen is you basically get an endpoint that you can either have an unauthenticated or authentication layer in front of it. You send it your, for instance, clickstream data, send it off, we'll batch it, store it on R2. You can transform it on the go, you can enrich the data on the go, And we acquired also a small startup that helps you do that, to have a great DX while you do that. So you're basically having your ETL pipeline entirely on Cloudflare, fully serverless at scale as of today. So I'm super excited for that. Now, you might be wondering, hey, initially they were a programmable CDN. Then they allowed us to build full stack apps. And now this guy is on stage talking about event ingestion, Parquet files, iceberg data catalogs. That is a really different angle, right? It is. And this is basically also where we're thinking we're investing next. If you look at my timeline, basically we go all back, right? And we look to the where's 2025 plus, we're still enabling all those use cases. Got a call. Someone calling because of pipelines better. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry about that. That is all great. But the next thing here on the bottom right, what is that like, right? And I can tell you, we're building a data platform. So the idea is really to say, no matter where that data is coming in from, whether that's logs, that's again, as I said, clickstream data, whether that's metrics from your devices, we want to make it super easy for you to bring that data to us, whether that's through our S3 API, whether that's through stream ingestion, whether that's through queues, all these kind of things. And then, of course, we have R2 to store all that data, but storing the data is only where the story begins. Because storing data, there's no value in that. Why is that? Well, if you don't access the data, it's dead. It's cost. That's it. So you also need to query the data. And that's exactly what we're working on and looking up next. And that is whether that's through external partners. I mentioned already the database of this world, MotherDuck, ClickHouse, all these kind of things. And again, you have free flexibility to try out tools because, hey, you have no egress. You can access whatever, whether you want to spin it up on your laptop and just query it from there. That's cool. You want to use it on AWS? Cool. New AI tool? Use it from there. You have all the flexibility that you might not have with other object storage providers because, hey, you're limited by egress. And trying things out only works in that environment because egressing that as a standard rate of about 9 cents per gigabyte, and that is a lot if you have large data sets. Becomes really, really, really expensive really, really soon. And I cannot talk too much about the bottom right corner of this graphic, but you see there's Cloudflare talking a little bit about like future OLAP SQL products. There's currently a position opening in our job board for query engines. So I think it's pretty obvious where we're going. But we want to make one thing like really, really like clear. We want to make sure that you're getting the most value of the data that you're storing. And we think that Cloudflare has the unique opportunity because we have that scale, we have that network, and we have that pricing model of free egress to make it really, really attractive for people to bring data, make that really easy, reliable, and also scalable, store that, and especially then consume it in a cost-efficient way. So that is the next thing that we're really investing a lot of resources in. And that is, again, totally different breed of developer that is interested in that, to different kind of infra team. But that's how the platform is evolving over time and that we're basically looking into, right? That is, yeah, that is it. And again, we are on a mission to make every gigabyte more valuable. It's really interesting if you listen to our product and engineering org, they are obsessed with that. So you'll see this more, also for existing products. So I don't know who of you is working with Workers KV right now. It is an amazing product, but right now you have basically list, get, and put, which is great. But there are also other things that would be making it even better. So imagine querying coming to that. Imagine if you have data in S3 and all your users upload, I don't know, your logs, being able to upload to query that. So that's very much what we're looking to say, hey, No matter in which product you store your data right now on Cloudflare, we want to make sure that you get more value out of that gigabyte of data that you're storing today tomorrow than you're getting today, right? And we are on that journey right now. We built all the primitives, right? If you look at like where are we at today? Well, ingest is pretty much solved with pipelines there. You have the S3 API, so you can keep your existing tooling. You don't have to rip out whatever you already have built. You just change the endpoint, take it from there. If you're building something new and you want to have a replacement for your Kinesis, your Apache, whatever, we have pipelines. And then queues, same thing. If you want to do it in a more custom way, we have the object storage. So now what's left is the right side here. You'll see more partnerships coming and you'll see more products coming over the next months and years to come. It's a big market to enter, but that's very much what we are building today. Okay, I made this really short because I was like, hey, perhaps there are some questions from the audience. It's a short journey. And as always with Cloudflare, whatever we were building, whatever we're releasing, even at the end of our developer week, where we have like 30 new announcements, the last sentence, the last bit internally is, and we're just getting started. And that is it for our story journey. Thank you so much. Ask away, yeah.
When I first used KB Store, it was not guaranteed in terms of response time. So you just said it's gone down to 2 milliseconds now. So
Yep.
is that guaranteed, Matt?
I will explain how that works, right? So KV is a really interesting concept. Right? It's eventually consistent. And the way that that works, or how to think about it conceptually, and that is how it works. There's a piece of the documentation is called how KV works. It's an object storage with a cache in front of it. That's how you should think about basically KV. And there's a lot of hacks to make this extremely fast and reliable. Is getting a few million RPS at any given time. So right now, that's over. Oh, I cannot give you the exact number, but that's a few million reads right there. If the data, and we're talking about, I don't know, a few bytes or a few kilobytes, let's say a few kilobytes of data, is already in cache at that local data center where you're reading this from, that's why you see this like P90 of 2 milliseconds. However, if you're in Australia and let's say our object storage backends are not in Australia, you might see for a 25 megabyte key or value that you're reading, you might see, I don't know, still 1.2 seconds of latency because it's cold and we need to retrieve it all the way from the object storage backend. It then populates on the way. Like we not only return that to the worker, but we also hydrate all the caches on the way. So the second request that comes to the region has it in cache, so to say. So there's many optimization techniques that you still have to do as a developer, so to say. Especially one thing that is crucial is look at the cardinality. If your key is a UUID and every user or every request has a different UUID, you'll have a terrible time. If you are able to reduce that cardinality in any form of fashion through nesting, through interesting data structures, you'll have a way better time, right? So, and that's a little bit the trick there, so to say, understand what it's being used for. But in general, I feel like it really helps conceptually to understand it's a cache for all our 340 cities around the world where Cloudflare operates. That this cache lives in exactly those data center locations. And then there's centralized object storages that we need to fetch from if we don't have the data anymore in the local hot region. Does that answer the question?
It does. So I guess it wouldn't be a like for like replacement for Redis or another in the same use case in terms of you guarantee some
Yeah,
level.
yeah. It would not really. It depends. If you have a saturation of requests, so to say, where you say I'm high RPS enough, or my cardinality is so low that I basically have a close to guaranteed cache hit, you will have a better performance than Redis, so to say. But just imagine if you wanted to have like Redis for Redis light comparison, we would have to host 330 Redis instances around the world, and you don't want to foot that bill, if that makes sense.
Okay. And is there any product that gives you some level of consistency on the response? It's more about consistency on the response as you're designing, I guess, would be useful.
Yeah. I feel like right now, it's all that's the challenge on the beauty of distributed systems engineering, right? Um, I will put it that way. No, but right now in your system, you might control the latency within your network, but you can't control the latency, how long it takes from your request from the end user to your system, right? So you might have like this 2 milliseconds within your, I don't know, on-prem environment or whatever it is. That's great. But if you're in a single region, and that's the issue of distributed computing or not distributed computing, right? Is that, hey, you cannot control, hey, does network time to actually reach my service, is that 1.2 seconds or is that 50 milliseconds? Cloudflare can give you pretty much a guarantee that we're within 50 milliseconds of 99% of the connected internet. That's great. But then if the data is not in cache, we need to also do this like network trip to fetch the data from somewhere. It's a trade-off. Yep. Yep.
Is there anything on the roadmap for ingesting from Cloudflare?
There is nothing as of today. Would love to chat after what you have in mind.
Ingesting from Cloudflare.
Okay. Yep. And not of today. I don't think that we have. Yeah, exactly. I think it's not natively supported. I think it would be create pretty easy to get it going, but I don't think it's native, if that makes sense. Anything else?
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm not sure I've used your different objects in a while, but when it was just released, we could give it a try. He had cost issues with how it was built then, and that will quick operate it in terms of so we were building a WebSocket representation. And the risk we had was basically how long the Drupal object ran for was the billing. Uh, has that been sorted? Like, is it okay? So is it more of a simplified?
I will explain. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for the users that don't know, durable objects is a weird kind of beast. But the interesting thing is, it's really, really good to keep WebSocket connections alive and be a coordination server, so to say, for many users that can connect to multiple or different instances, but also to the same instance in a stateless fashion. In the past, as long as the WebSocket connection was alive, no matter whether there was activity or not, we would say, hey, I'm sorry, but we need to keep this drop object alive to keep the connection alive. So we're going to charge you for that. And that could mean that an end user could go to your website and just basically do a denial of wallet to some extent. What we are charging on now is what we have a hibernation API. And that says if there is no incoming request for like message from incoming from the client for a given period of time, we can hibernate. So the WebSocket goes to sleep, not the durable object goes to sleep, the instance. We keep the WebSocket connection alive though, with like ping pong on like an earlier part of our stack, so to say. And that keeps the cost down, so to say, if that makes sense. So you're just being charged if there's actual requests incoming, as you would imagine, from a serverless environment using the WebSocket Hibernation API from Durable Objects. Yep.
And up now, workers can access all of them on a regional auto index data. How will done the
Here's my 3-hour talk on how to fix this. Welcome to session 2. Long story short, we are fully aware. It takes time to get this right. It's on the roadmap. And that's all I can share for today. We can talk afterwards offline a little bit more, but for today, that's all I have to share. Fully understand the concern there of saying, hey, you need fine-grained permissions if you want to bring data to this solution. Yeah, cool. We are at time. I much appreciate you all listening, not being on your phones reading the blog instead of listening to me. I much appreciate that. Awesome audience. I hope you had a great day at Connect. If you're interested, we are also hosting this night at the Cloudflare London office meetup with 11 labs and Superbase. We'll go through the Developer Week announcements. We'll just hang. Over 200 people signed up, so it's going to be crowded. It's going to be a blast. If the registration is still open, check it out on Luma, Cloudflare Developer London. Should be right there. I would love to see you there as well. And for the rest of it, enjoy Connect. Thank you so much for joining us.